two, 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 two. 2.1. Bu- 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 bu. Two, 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 two. What? There's only two numbers, one and two.
Yeah, I'm mic'd up. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys have enjoyed your Arcadecon so far. We have a very, very special guest with us today in the form of Mr. Robert Picardo. But what we're going to do is, first, before I bring Robert out on stage, what we're going to do is we're going to show a clip of his extensive career so far, dating back to, as you can see, the Wonder Years right through. And some of the roles may be a bit of surprise to you, and you'll see why. So we're going to play this clip first. I'm going to go off stage, let's just watch it, and then we're going to bring Robert out, okay?
Worked together, we played together. I'd like to think we've learned together. It hasn't been easy.
It's gonna be a long one.
I've had to push, I've had to yell. Sometimes I've had to double knot my hard shoes and kick you square in the fanny. But it's been worth it. 38 weeks ago, you arrived here a ragtag bunch of softies. Now you're leaving a hard-boiled cadre of young athletes. That's something to be proud of. This summer, when you're out there, think back on the guy who made it all possible. Ed Cutlip, a human being, a man, an educator. Sure, maybe he didn't have a master's degree, but he was fair.
What's he doing?
Oh my God. Was it possible? Cutlip was falling apart before our very eyes. It was horrible. Like watching a bug die on a windowsill. Someone had to stop this. And someone did. Joey Putnam. It was his last act of 7th grade, but it was his finest.
Winan, get a mop. The rest of you 60 laps. That's 6-0 and no shirking. Let's go. Let's go!
Tasting Mary! Come to bed, juicy boy. Who brings this tender morsel? Disturbing red bucklebone dress.
I'm an old cowhen from the Rio Grande, but my leg's not full and my fist not thin. I'm a cowboy who's never seen a cow. Can't rope a steer 'cause I don't know how, and I'm not for to start learning how. Yippee-i-oh-hi.
Where am I? You're in a Johnny Cat.
I mean, what am I doing here?
I'm sorry. Would you please rephrase the question? Huh?
How did I get in this taxi?
The door opened. You got in.
Well, maybe I have been working too hard, Mr. Clamp.
Take a day off. We'll take a half a day off.
That's very generous, sir. A half day off once the building is operational. Thank you, sir.
Battle stations.
Captain, you must relieve me of duty. At once.
An assimilation virus has penetrated our defenses.
We're becoming drones!
Hard to starboard. Reinforce the shields.
Incoming fire! Doctor.
Computer, activate the ECH.
Acknowledged.
Transferring all systems to your command. You have the bridge.
Indeed. Shields to maximum. Photon torpedoes, full volley. Fire. Computer, report.
Enemy shields are intact.
We are the Borg.
I know very well who you are. Stand down your weapons.
State your designation.
Emergency command hologram. At your service.
Designation unknown.
Not for long.
Doctor.
Warning. Primary shields are failing.
This is the last time I'm going to ask you. Stand down your weapons. Turn back while you still can.
You will be assimilated.
Over my dead program. Computer, activate the photonic cannon.
The photonic cannon is online.
Fire.
Doctor, can you confirm? The readings, Doctor.
Readings, confirmed. Of course. The away team's physiologies are within acceptable parameters. All life signs stable.
You're okay to proceed, Tom. Understood. We'll contact you again when we reach the site.
Look, I came here because I have a plan to get you out of here. What is it? Win the trial.
Look, we were just playing along to buy us enough time to figure out a way out of here.
And how's that coming along?
Well, we're working on it.
I was Harvard Law Review. I was chief counsel of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Prior to that, I was an appellate advocate for Hartshorn and Slaughter, one of the most prestigious litigation boutiques in all New York City. Now, believe me, I can handle 3 tribal elders with a stack of papyrus.
Okay, folks. Folks, could you please welcome to the stage Mr. Robert Picardo? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you for the warm welcome. Please state the nature of the medical emergency. Is that the oddest catchphrase in history? I mean, it's strange, right? That could have been thanks for the memories or something sweet, but it had to be that. Anyway, are we supposed to sit down?
If you wish, yes.
We're sitting down. You're wearing an overcoat. You know that.
I am. I figured it'd be appropriate for the doctor to interview the doctor.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm going to take off the overcoat.
I understand. It's the 2 major doctors with no names from the 2 major science fiction franchises.
There you go.
I get it. All right, if I sit down, suddenly I've disappeared behind a computer screen for you guys. Are you okay with that? You all right? Because I can still see the cute girls, which is more important to me. Okay? All right. Anyway, well, we can move forward to closer to the end of the stage. Will that wreck the picture?
And we can turn the webcam, I think.
What? Where is the webcam?
This is the webcam right here.
So the webcam's right on me there.
Yeah, so we can turn you this way if you want to scooch forward.
I want to scooch.
Okay, let's scooch.
Scooching. Having scooched.
There we
How's
go.
that? All right, cool. All right. We're ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if it was okay with yourself, I was going to start with just 1 or 2 questions, then we're going to open it up to the audience.
No, not okay.
Okay.
No, it's all right. It's all right. Go ahead. Start with a couple.
We saw the show reel there before you popped out, and there was an extensive career there with a lot of different roles. A lot of the roles in that show reel were works with both Joe Dante and Rob Bottin. And I was asked by numerous people before we came up on stage to actually maybe try and get a little story between that relationship, like working with Rob Bottin and all the special effects over your career, and also working with Joe Dante on numerous films.
I met both of them, obviously, on The Howling. I was a New York theater actor who had just recently come to California. I had done 2 leads on Broadway in my early 20s. The second one was playing the son and the second largest role in a play with the screen legend Jack Lemmon. So I played Jack's, recently graduated from college son. And it was a very, Jack was his lovable Peter Pan-like persona, and I was his conservative son who didn't like his father because his father had been very irresponsible once he divorced the kid's mother. So it was sort of an angry father-son confrontation. And I had some emotionally explosive scenes in the play. Well, apparently Joe Dante saw me in the play, either on Broadway or when I recreated the role in California, and decided, there is my psychotic werewolf that I've been looking for. Because I went in and auditioned for The Howling, he cast me, and I've always loved horror movies growing up. I was a big fan of the Universal horror classics. So I was excited to be in a werewolf movie. I didn't know I'd look quite so unattractive. And Rob Bottin was the young genius who I was introduced to, and Rob had to approve me. He had to make sure that I was the kind of actor that would perform under the makeup. When you wear a prosthetic makeup, you have to really overexpress your face to move the rubber that's glued to your face to really make it look alive. You could tell that from the Legend clip that I really know how to move the rubber. And that's why Rob grew to love me, because no matter how much they put on top of me, no matter what they put on me, I would still move the rubber. In The Howling, I'm convinced that it was the first time they used bladder makeup, and this is before CGI, guys, before special computer effects. So all of that was done practically. They would take a mold of your face, cast your face in what's called alginate, the stuff that that dentists use to take an impression of your teeth, and then they would make a sculpture of your face, and then they would make a thin latex copy of your face. And underneath the latex copy, they glued little airbags with hoses coming out the back. I'm convinced the airbags were condoms, but I don't know that for a fact. Either way, they were unused. And so they would glue these little bags to me, and they had a giant air bladder that they glued to my neck that looked like a hot water bottle when you're sick. And every time they inflated off camera, they inflated the bladder in my neck. I could not breathe. So I'm turning into a werewolf. Am I out of frame now? All right. Yes, I'm out of frame. I turn into a werewolf, and I would go like that, and then some little makeup assistant off camera would blow in the bladder under my neck, and suddenly I couldn't breathe anymore. So I would go like this, like I was choking. So we had to work on that, where they managed to time the application of the air so that they didn't kill the actor. And on the set of The Howling, I did a lot of joking in between takes. I constantly would cut up. I did some singing. I remember as the werewolf, which was all funny and made Joe laugh, and he decided that, because he thought primarily that I was a dramatic actor when he cast me, but because he's remarked that because of the outtakes from The Howling and the fun that we had, that he realized that I would be good in comedy. So I have, Joe is the only director that when he calls, no matter what it is, I say yes. He's given me a wonderful gallery of characters. He once commented that if he ever had a role that he didn't know how to cast, he would simply give it to me.
Amazing. Thank you very much. The Howling, though, is famous for the transformation scene. Is fantastic. It's easily up there, one of my favorite. I'm a massive horror buff myself. Has anyone seen The Howling? Yeah. Do you remember the transformation scene? It is quite. It's like there's some beautiful imagery in there. It's fantastic.
And there were many individual gags. Like I had a hand. Remember when the nails grow out of my hand? That was just a plastic hand that I had to hold down out of camera and then hold it up, and then somebody off camera would push the little cables and the fingernails would grow out like that. But all of that is very critical focus-wise. Like the hand had to be very precisely a certain distance from my face so they could rack focus, I guess, from my eyes to the hands. And I can't see a thing because I have these giant lenses in my eyes that are like if you had a shot of Jameson's, took the drink and then stuck the shot glass in your eyeball, that's what it felt like. You know, it really felt like somebody had stuck a giant glass. Now they make these lenses out of plastic, the same plastic they use for contact lenses. But years ago, when you guys weren't even born yet, contact lenses were made of glass before they made them out of plastic. And these giant, they're called scleral lenses that cover your whole eyeball, they were glass. So in Legend and in The Howling, I wore these giant lenses that were so uncomfortable I cannot tell you. And you can't see out of them too. So you're trying to judge the distance of this plastic hand in front of your face and you can't even see it. You know, there are a lot of technical problems then that I would not. I don't know if I'd be as patient later in life as I was back then.
You've played a lot of iconic roles throughout the years, like obviously the Doctor. Is like everyone here, I'm sure, like there's a lot of Star Trek fans in the audience remember you as the Doctor. But is there any smaller roles that you yourself loved playing, particular parts that you thought
I would
fantastic?
I'd like to talk a little about the cowboy in Inner Space. I would say that is my favorite screen comedy role. Steven Spielberg produced it, and because Joe directed it, he said, look, you have to be approved by Steven Spielberg, so we basically have to fool him into thinking you're going to be a scary villain because Joe wanted me to be a funny villain. So we had to do a videotape audition for Spielberg where I appeared scary. Now, I was doing a play up in Northern California, so I flew in on my day off. I went over to the studio, which was Warner Brothers, and I had this idea that my character should have a gold tooth. So I took, just like I do in the movie, I took a gold candy wrapper, glued it to my tooth. I didn't have a wig at that time that was appropriate, so I greased my whole face with Vaseline to make me shiny and look, and I had a couple days of beard stubble. And I was supposed to be playing some Middle Eastern character of unknown origin who was a high technology thief. So there were no lines. The cowboy literally had one line or two lines in the whole movie, and everything else I say I basically made up. But in the audition, I sat, and because there was no dialogue to read, I stuck in this funny voice like this, and I said, I'm going to read you, and I picked up, do you remember the old days when we had video cassette recorders? And do you remember how they had these endless instruction manuals that nobody ever read?
Yeah.
I read the instruction manual. I mean, I didn't read much. I just said, to set timer, please hold down button to, and I just read it. And then after reading for a while, just to create the character's way of talking and looking, I said, America is a great country. I want to sing now a few of my favorite American songs for you. And then dead serious, like I was a murderer, like a hitman, I sang, I got spurs that jingle, 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 as they go riding merrily along. And I sang that, and I sang Happy Trails to You, and I said, I'm an old cowhand, which ended with yippee-i-oh-hi. So I just did cheap, silly jokes about songs that sounded funny, and they laughed so much apparently when they watched the audition at the songs that they said I had to sing in the movie. So that's why when the cowboy is getting ready to leave for the night, that's why I sing that little, I'm an old cowhand song. I want to tell you one other joke about that. Inner Space is the only role I've ever had where I have a scene where I'm basically nude and I have little bikini briefs on, and the crotch of my briefs matches the tip of my boots. Now, why not? I mean, guys, if you're going to be nude in a movie, you might as well do it with style, right? So I asked the wardrobe department, I wanted my crotch to match my boot tips, and they said, okay. Well, there's a scene in the movie, again, this is pre special effects photography, where I have to play the cowboy, and I have to play Martin Short's character, Jack, as the cowboy in the same take. I don't know if you remember that scene, but the cowboy is supposed to be passed out. He's tied up in the bathtub, and Meg Ryan's character comes out, sees Jack as the cowboy talking, and I pace. It starts out as me. I come out of the room with my face, but talking like Martin Short. And I start to pace in and out of the frame. Well, once I paced out of the frame, the real Martin Short paced into frame, because it's only on his back. And I ran around the camera, tore my hair off, tore my clothes off. While the scene is going on, behind the camera, I ran into the bathtub. I jumped in the bathtub wearing nothing but the boots and the little bikini briefs. There was a soap dish in the bathtub that was a secret door. The soap dish came out, the hairdresser hiding behind the wall put the wig on my head, the cowboy's curly wig, and then put the soap dish dispenser back in the wall, and all of that was done in less than 17 seconds. Jeez. All of my clothes, a wig change, everything, and then Meg Ryan would come in and see me, and meanwhile, I'm like this. I mean, I've just done this 10 times in a row. I think it was maybe 11 seconds. You could time it. And I'm in the bathtub, and I'm like, but then I had to hold my breath when the camera came on me so that my stomach wasn't moving. And I think we did it 12 or 15 times that day, but it looked great. It's a great moment in the movie. However, I needed a breakaway costume that would come off in a second. The day I met Meg Ryan, they said, Bob, have you met Meg yet? And Meg is 26 years old and couldn't be more adorable. And I'm shaking her hand, and the wardrobe assistant says, hey, Joe, we made the breakaway costume, look. And she tore all my clothes off. So I'm shaking hands with Meg Ryan, and I go like this. Turn and run away. It was, yes, that was my favorite story for a minute. She seemed pleased. Or at least, you know, not disappointed in any way. So that was a great experience. I ad-libbed, as I said. I got to make up a lot of the silly jokes in the movie that Joe thought was funny, but the producer Mike Fennell didn't think was funny. So when I'm playing Martin Short's character, pretending to be the cowboy, and he doesn't know how to talk like the cowboy, and they say, "Cowboy, you changed your hair because instead of being curly, he has blonde hair," and I say, "Yes." I had it done, a Clint Eastwood style. You see Outlaw Josie Wales, what a flick. Like that. So I said that joke, and everybody thought it was funny, but the producer is going, is that funny? I don't think that's funny. You think that's funny? Is that funny to you? I don't think that's funny. Not funny. So that's the kind of, confidence building off camera that you have to sometimes weather as an actor if you're convinced that what you're doing is going to work in the context of the movie. It is, I think, one of the great stupid moments in the movie, because it's not the kind of line somebody would ever write. It was just too stupid. But it made it in the movie, and that's what's great about Joe. He lets the actors, he gives them freedom, and you give him a lot of choices. The last scene you saw in Gremlins, the last expression, we did that about 15 times. And when I did that take, we did all different takes, and usually I was still disgusted or not interested, but I did that take as a joke, and he went, "You don't expect me to print that, do you?" And that's the one that ended up in the movie.
You spoke there of like the overall chaos of getting that scene in the bathtub set up, and that again, that's physical effects. And as an actor who's worked in extensive roles with extensive physical effects, and also in roles where there's a lot of special effects and CGI, do you feel that sometimes maybe do you harken back to some of the days of the physical effects compared to some of the CGI, that the spirit of it might not be capturing what it is?
Well, you do, I mean, on Star Trek, you do a lot of looking off camera at things that you have no idea what they're going to look like because they haven't made it yet. I remember in one of the early episodes that was called Heroes and Demons, where the Doctor has to fight, it's supposed to be Beowulf on the on the holodeck, and Harry Kim has disappeared in the Beowulf program, so the Doctor is transferred to the holodeck. It's the Doctor's first away mission, but because he's a hologram, it has to be on the holodeck. And anyway, there was that was a fun episode. First of all, there was the gorgeous 6-foot blonde Freya, who I got to kiss. I always remember the episodes where I got to kiss a girl. Do you know the guys complained the first season because the Doctor kissed more than any of the other male characters? The other actors went and complained to the producers that the bald guy was getting too much action. Never forgot that. Anyway, so in Heroes and Demons, they said when I'm fighting Grendel at the end, I said, well, what does the monster look like? And the visual effects guy say, well, it looks kind of like a giant pile of glowing linguini. And I said, okay, does it have linguini eyes? I mean, do we look at a certain part? He goes, yeah, somewhere up here might be the eyes. So you have to do a lot of this stuff. Which is hard. And the other fun thing we did on Star Trek was we did motion control photography where you play two different characters. Kate Mulgrew in the finale of Voyager did it to tremendous success, where she played the older Janeway and her present self. And in the episode, I had to do it 2 or 3 times, but mostly in the episode that I got story credit for. I'm the first Star Trek actor to ever get a writing credit on one of the live-action television series. I got a story credit for Lifeline, where Louis Zimmerman, the Doctor's programmer, is dying and the Doctor tries to save his life. And then it's like a father-son drama between the Doctor and his father, his programmer, about all the disappointments they have with each other. You know, Louis Zimmerman is like, why are you singing opera? Why don't you just do what you were programmed to do? And the Doctor's going, why don't you love me for what I am? You know. So it was a classic kind of father-son conflict in this set with this very special technological future. But in that, I had to play both characters. And in motion control photography, you rehearse both parts. My stand-in, JR, was great. He would learn the lines from both scenes, and he would be the Doctor, and I would be Zimmerman, and then whoever moved more in the scene, I would think about how I wanted to play the scene, and I would play the character who moved the most, who motivated the action, who moved around the most. Then I would do that performance first. But then, when you do the second performance, you're acting with no one, guys, because the other character, you've already done the other performance, so you're pretending to look in the eyes of your other self who's not there. You're walking around yourself. I know I'm stepping out of frame. Forgive me, those at home. But you would, when you do the first performance, if Louis Zimmerman is here and the Doctor is trying to get his attention and he does this, and then Louis Zimmerman turns his head away and the Doctor runs around and tries to talk to him this way, you are literally acting with nothing. You're going like this and you're saying your line, and then to make it even harder, you can't overlap the original lines you did. They're playing your first performance sound-wise off camera, and then the dialogue is very quick. So what they do is they literally turn the volume up for when, and then they turn it off, turn it up, turn it off, and then he speaks, and then I say something, and then I have to run around, and if I overlap the other line, if I wreck anything, right, then it ruins the whole take. So sometimes you do these lengthy minute-and-a-half takes where if one little thing, if you're 1 inch off your mark, if I lean forward and my hand goes through the other guy, it totally looks phony. You see what I mean? If I gesture and my hand goes into the shoulder of Dr. Zimmerman, it ruins the take. So I have to go like this, but if I go like this, I've just gone through his ear. So it's so technical you cannot believe it. It just drives you nuts. And I can watch the show, because Louis Zimmerman slouches and the Doctor stands upright, whenever we're face to face, our eyes are at a different level. So I don't look, when I'm the Doctor, I look straight ahead and I should be looking down slightly. So you can see where some of the mistakes I made, because you just can't think of everything.
Okay, I think it's time we open the floor to questions, because if I keep asking questions I could be here all day, because I'm extremely nerding out right now. So if you'd like to step up to the microphone, folks, we could form a queue. There's 2 microphones. There's one on this end and there's one on this end. So we form an orderly queue and ask away. We'll start on the left-hand side here, please.
Yeah, while you were working on Voyager, what were the most recurring technical problems that had to be dealt with on that show, or were there any at all?
Well, because the Doctor would appear and disappear, he would zimmer in, that was the effect they called, which was basically a traditional overlap dissolve in filmmaking where they, where you lock the camera in position so the camera can't move, you shoot the actor standing there and pretend he's just appeared, then the actor leaves the picture, and then you shoot the empty room, and then you dissolve the frames together so that the actor will appear. You dissolve the frame where he's not there to the frame where he is there. However, the reason the camera has to be locked is that the image will jump slightly if the camera moves at all. So it has to be locked down. At least it had to. Now techniques are so sophisticated they don't have to do that anymore. But all it means is on the day when the Doctor, when they'd say, when they would say, computer, activate the emergency medical hologram, it just meant that I had to hide behind a chair, or I had to hide somewhere on the floor, and I had to pop up really quickly, like that, and say, please state the nature of the medical emergency. And then often they would split the screen, and the actor that would walk in, and if Tom Paris walked in and said, computer, activate the emergency medical hologram, he is in real time. His performance can't be changed. So the faster that I appear, the faster I would hop up, the better the take was. And then they would simply cut out the few frames as I'm in motion, hopping up, until I hit a position, and then it became live. But his thing was always live. He was looking, he didn't know where I was going to appear. So often we would do the joke where the other actor would say, please state the, it would say, computer, activate the emergency medical hologram, and the Doctor would say, please, and they would react like, oh, there you are. I love that joke. I push for that joke all the time. I said, why do I have to appear right in front of him? Why don't I appear over here or here or here? So I would always push to come in at an annoying place. Because my idea was that the Doctor should be as annoying as possible. Right? I mean, why not? I mean, I was told by the casting director that they auditioned 900 actors for the part of the Doctor. Now, I don't know if you know this or not. They asked me to read for the Doctor because the producers, I think, were fans of me in China Beach, the Vietnam drama I did with Dana Delaney. And I was doing a play at a very prestigious theater in LA at the time. I didn't have time to prepare. So I said to my wife, they're not going to put me in a Star Trek show. I don't think it's, But I spoke to an actress friend, and she said, oh, you must read the script. It's terrific. And I said, well, this Doctor part, it's 9 lines long. He's described as colorless and humorless, a computer program of a doctor, a hologram. I said, that doesn't sound very interesting. And she said, why don't you read for this Neelix character? It's a much bigger part, and it's funnier. Oh. So what do I do, Mr. Stupid? I go in and turn down the Doctor audition, and I read for Neelix. And they love me. They love me. And I screen tested for Neelix. It was between me and Ethan Phillips, who is a dear friend of mine, even at the time, but I didn't know he was my competition. And then a British actor who had played in the movie Topsy-Turvy about Gilbert and Sullivan. He had played Arthur Sullivan. Wonderful actor. I cannot remember his name at the moment. So the 3 of us are up for Neelix. I came in second. I came this close, guys, to spending 4,500 hours in a makeup chair. But I didn't get it. I did not get it. So when I found out I didn't get it, my agent called, and my agent said, strangely, they want, or however he said it, he said, they want you to come back and audition for the original character that they wanted to see you for, the Doctor. And I said, I don't get the joke. But okay, by that point, I think, I'd kind of fallen in love with the script, and I'd kind of fallen in love with the idea of having a steady job. So I went in and, I read for it, and I knew they wanted the character to be funny. So I ad-libbed, which you never do on Star Trek. You never ad-lib. But at the end of my audition, and remember, I've already auditioned once, I've tested once, so I am the only actor in the regular cast of Voyager, the only one who auditioned for the role he got one time. Usually, I think Harry Kim, Garrett said he read 5 or 6 times. Even Kate read more than once. I read 1 time because they'd already seen me. So they'd never heard me say the lines. I did them. I made the casting director laugh. I remember that. I literally made a joke. during the scene, which is you never do in Star Trek. But then the end of it, the last scripted line, when they leave the doctor's program running in sickbay, and he's kind of pissed off about that, he says, I believe someone has failed to terminate my program. And I took a long deadpan look at the 18 producers and studio executives and everyone in the room staring at me, and I said, I'm a doctor, not a nightlight. And I got hired because of that joke, because I didn't even know I was channeling DeForest Kelley. It was strictly by chance, and I'm sure they hired me because of that. And then they started to write those jokes for me in the show. So it was strictly just the luck of the draw. And had I wanted the role and been intimidated by getting the role, I probably would not have had that freedom. So sometimes it's better to not care too much as an actor. It really is better not to, because you don't freak yourself out. Tim Russ loved Star Trek and came very close to playing LeVar's part, Geordi LaForge. So Tim really wanted to play Tuvok, really, really wanted. And I'm afraid that if I had my heart set on it too much, I probably would have screwed myself up. Yes?
You were talking a lot about your work with Joe in the past, and I was wondering if that influenced the Doctor's choice of name in the last episode of Voyager.
That's a very sweet story, but no. I did not... it was strictly the writer's joke that after deliberating for 7 years and coming up with 15 different names, all he could think of was Joe. I thought it was cute because every man in my family, my brother, my father, my uncles, everybody was named Joe except me. So I took it as a tribute to my family, but it was just by coincidence. Wasn't that the whole reason that the Doctor never got a name was also my fault as an actor? Because we had shot probably the first 4 or 5 episodes, and we were about to premiere. And I said to Rick Berman, our producer, I said, do you intend to list me as Doc Zimmerman in the opening credits? He said, of course. That was what my character was going to be named, Doc Zimmerman. He was going to be a tribute to Herman Zimmerman, who was one of the original art directors on the Star Trek movies. So I was going to take the name of Louis Zimmerman, my programmer, and I was going to be Doc Zimmerman. Well, I said to Rick Berman, we just shot an episode with a very dramatic ending where the Doctor is talking to Kes, and he looks at her and says, I should like to have a name, with a very dramatic moment about entitlement for an artificial intelligence. What are you entitled to? And I was asking for permission to have a name and to select my own name. I said, well, if we list me in the opening credits in the beginning as Doc Zimmerman, aren't we kind of killing the suspense here? And he said, you're right. And they changed the opening titles at the last minute before the show premiered. And I know this because the visual effects guy gave me my original title card, which was Doc Zimmerman, Robert Picardo. And it became The Doctor. And I had no idea, because I was too ignorant at the time about Doctor Who, to realize that I was ripping off 40 years of British television. Had no idea that by going as The Doctor, that it was really a tip of the hat to you guys. Again, I was too stupid to know who I was stealing from. But now I know, and now I'm glad I did it.
Yes. Next question?
In the Stargate verse, was Jason Momoa as funny off camera as Christopher Judge?
Was David Hewlett? Who?
Jason Momoa.
Oh, Jason Momoa as funny off camera?
Yeah.
He's funny, but I wouldn't. I mean, the guy who made me laugh was David Hewlett. David Hewlett is hilarious off camera. No, he is. He's such a nudge. He made me laugh more than any other actor more than anyone else on Star Trek made me laugh. And it was because I don't know what it was about him. There was something, it was his humor. It was the way he would get annoyed. He was very funny when he got annoyed. But Jason, Jason was funny and very, very different from his character. And Chris, who I really like a lot, I didn't work with that much on Stargate. I only did a couple episodes. So he was a bad boy. He definitely liked to mess around, and he was fearless as far as messing around. But I didn't get to work with him that much. But I think I got the impression that Chris was probably the bigger cut up than Jason.
Thank you.
No one over. Okay, go. Question over here.
This is a two-part question. Firstly, how did you get involved with the Morganville adaptation, and is working on a Kickstarter project any different than a regular film or TV show?
Good questions, both. Morganville Vampires, which is going to be a web series for Geek and Sundry that I'll appear on. I think their YouTube and their Hulu channels, and it premieres in September. Is based on a New York Times best-selling young adult series of novels called the Morganville Vampires. Morganville Vampires. And I play a 450-year-old British vampire named Oliver Cromwell, who his name is Oliver. He may or may not be Oliver Cromwell. And I have a long-haired, sort of gray, black hair and look like an old hippie guitar player. And it was great fun. Amber Benson is in it, and she's terrific, and a really great young cast. So I had a good. I think they're going to premiere it at Comic-Con in a week or two, and I really enjoyed it, and I think we will make more because I think it's going to be pretty good. But they just offered it to me because they knew my work, so I just came through my agent, a straight offer. And it was fun because I don't get to do British that often, and I don't get to do Irish unless I'm in a bar telling jokes. But it was a lot of fun to do. Now Kickstarter, Kickstarter is a great thing, but it's a two-edged sword in my opinion for an actor because you're often lending your name to something that doesn't exist yet. You're lending your name to an idea, and sometimes normally in the old days when you were offered something or you auditioned and they wanted you to do something, there would be a negotiation period where you say, here's the deal, here's how long you work, here's your billing, here's how much we'll pay you, and then they would be a little back and forth, a little nibbling at each side by the agent and the producer. Now you're saying in advance, okay, there is no project yet, but we're going to try to raise money for it, and then once we do, you've already committed to doing it, so you've completely given away your bargaining power because you've already said yes. And sometimes, how should I put this? Sometimes the vision that is pitched to you, or what you're going to do, or what your character is going to be, is not exactly what the finished product is. You're going on the strengths of the people making it, their writing skills. Now, here's an example of a really good one, I think. I'm in this project called Space Command Redemption, which they're still shooting. We've shot the first third of the movie. Then they had to stop and raise more money on Kickstarter. It's really good. I wish I could show, if I'd thought about it, I would have brought a clip, but it probably is a copyright infringement anyway. But what's fun about that movie is I work with a wonderful actor named Doug Jones. Do you know Doug Jones?
Yes.
Doug Jones plays an artificial intelligence, and I play the human character. It's set in the future, and I'm on a mining colony on a moon of Jupiter, and I'm a Muslim, by the way, and you see me praying in the movie, and Doug Jones plays this escaped slave replicant, this slave artificial intelligence who is questioning too much, and I kind of protect him. So it's a very interesting relationship, and it's obviously a comment on the fact that I played an artificial intelligence in Star Trek, and here I am playing the human character who is learning to understand him and to value him. So I think that's going to be really good. I don't know when it will be out. I'm also in Star Trek Renegades, which turned out, the part I've seen looks terrific. I don't have a very big part in that because I got a play at the time I wanted to do, so they had to reduce the size of my role and give many of my scenes to Sean Young, who now in the movie plays the scientist, and I'm her mentor boyfriend. So I get to make out with Sean Young, which was nice. So Kickstarter, and I'm involved in other ones now that haven't yet gone on. There's another one that's a parody of Doctor Who called Inspector Spacetime, which is very clever. You ever heard of it?
Yeah.
I am supposed to be the Moriarty-like villain in Inspector Spacetime is raising money on Kickstarter to make a feature. and I will play a British a villain, a very devious doctor villain in that. And I think that's going to be, I mean, judging from the quality of their early episodes, I think that'll be very good. So, but there's so many of them at once that sometimes I forget until they call me and say, "We got the money, let's go," and I go, "Who are you?"
Excellent. We'll stick over this side. Next question, please.
I'm going to be greedy and try and ask 2 questions, if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
There's another kind of Kickstarter-related question. I know you were saying that your role was reduced in Star Trek Renegades, but was the experience of filming a fan production of Star Trek any different to filming the official production?
Well, sure. You have no dressing room. No, there are no perks. On a low-budget thing, all the money, they're rightfully so, they're trying to put all the money on the screen, all the production values. So they're really anxious to make the image look as good as it can and get the best actors they can, but there are no frills, there are no perks at all. So you have no place to change. You're changing in the men's room, or you're changing, you're in big shared rooms that the same place. It's the costume room. Everything happens in there. So it's harder. It's a little tougher on the actor, but it only gets to be a drag if it goes on for days and days and days. If it's just a few days. I wanted to play a bigger part in it. I spoke to them. I gave them ideas for how my character would function, and I didn't want to play the Doctor because I thought that wasn't fair to the fans.
Yeah.
Because the Doctor was not supposed to age. So I asked to play Zimmerman. I pitched how Zimmerman I thought would function. And then at the 2 weeks or 3 weeks before, I called him and said, "Look, I'm really sorry, but I have this other job that I really want to take, and it's a play, so the dates can't change. Can you write me down? Can you shoot everything, all my stuff in a day?" They said that's not possible because I was supposed to work 4 or 5 days. So what they decided to do was make a new character, Sean Young, who was both my mentor. Who was my I was her mentor and her lover. So we're both engineers. She's the one who's on the ship. I'm back home, and I visit as a hologram. So I play a hologram, but I play a hologram of Louis Zimmerman. And it turned out to be a lot of fun to do, and I'm glad I'm part of it. And I wish I could have played a larger role, but I really wanted to do this theater production. And now the theater production, they want to take the one I did down to Buenos Aires, Argentina. So hopefully I'll be going with that cast for that play I did in California and visiting South America for the first time.
Very nice.
And just my other question is, how hard was it to concentrate with Jerry Ryan around on set on Voyager?
When Jerry first joined the cast and was in that outfit, I knew I was going to be working with her for a while, and I didn't want to be caught staring at her. So when she came on the set, I would always look the other way. It was kind of rude, actually. She would come in and we'd be doing a scene together, and if we were rehearsing, and she's right here, the moment if they took a lighting break, instead of facing her, I would do this. I would turn away like that, and wait, because what I was afraid of was that she would turn away and I would be caught staring at her bum. True story. So what I did is I never looked at her for like 2 or 3 months. I finally confessed this to her, and she laughed and pinched me on the bum. and from that point on, I just stared at her as much as I wanted. When we did the Doctor's daydreaming episodes, when the producer called me and said, "What would some of the Doctor's daydreams be?" And I said, without missing a beat, sketching 7 of 9 in the nude. I said it like a little too fast. And then they put it in the show.
Thanks for that, by the way.
Isn't that good? Yeah. Sometimes, guys, you just have to say it out loud. Usually it doesn't work, and usually at times it'll get you arrested. But
thank you.
Thank you.
Next question. We have one over here. Oh, there we go.
You mentioned that you do a lot of work on stage. What would be your absolute dream role in a production to get that you would immediately jump at no matter what the terms were?
I would love to be in an original musical on Broadway and sing and have my own number. I mean, I'm an older guy now, so I'm only going to get the 5th or the 6th lead in a show, but I would love to have my own solo in a Broadway musical. That's what I'm still hoping will happen before I can no longer walk and talk and without bumping into the furniture. Thank you.
What do you find is the biggest difference between working in theatre and film and working with kind of the art departments in it, and which would you prefer?
What's the difference between working? The biggest difference between working between theater and film with the art departments?
With the kind of technical directing, costume departments?
Well, you know, in theater, because you're on stage in front of a live audience, you want the costume, obviously, to you may have much more input into the costume. I mean, a good costume designer will listen to the actors because the actor's going to wear the costume. And so depending on whatever the needs are, whatever the special needs are, you want to be able to perform in it well without tearing it up, without, you know, feeling uncomfortable, giving you whatever mobility. Often in television, when you're a regular character, you may have a special fitting for a costume that's only going to work once if the Voyager crew goes to some planet and we have to dress as something else. But normally you're wearing the same costumes that you're established in, especially on Star Trek. You're wearing the same costume over the course of 7 years. I know some of the men on the show got a little porky, and they had to wear those secret underwear. We call them Spanx, to kind of hold them in after the Christmas holidays, and they had a little too much blood pudding, you know. I was once told by the wardrobe department I was the only guy who never had to wear the special underwear. I don't know if that's true or not. I think I got the special underwear one Christmas for 2 or 3 days afterwards. But the actors would gain weight, but as a hologram, I couldn't gain weight. I couldn't get chubby. Didn't make sense, right? I couldn't wear glasses. Why would you program a computer program to have faulty eyesight? There were all sorts of things. I didn't get to eat on camera as a hologram unless we were on the holodeck. On the other hand, I didn't have to go to the bathroom, which was good. So there were all sorts of special things about being a hologram that you don't have to do what other humans do. But I would say that it's a more collaborative thing usually when you work on stage, because they understand that the actor is going to be in the costume 2.5 hours straight in front of the audience. I love working in every medium, and there are a lot of great costume designers, and Bob Blackman, who did all of the Star Trek series, except for the original series, is a perfect example of a guy who is so brilliantly talented. He would go right from Star Trek to doing opera, to doing theater. He could do anything, and was and is a man of real genius. We were very lucky to have him.
Thank you. Next question?
Hi, so my question is, for the arc of your character on Stargate, I know there's a lot more weight and drama taken up in Stargate Atlantis versus how the character is portrayed in SG-1, and I was just wondering, which did you prefer, the free reign or?
Well, my character on SG-1, Mr. Woolsey, was introduced as a one-off. He was just a bad guy who was supposed to come in and do one episode. The origin of it, there was an episode at the end of season 5, I think it was 5 or 6, called Heroes. And Heroes, it was Saul Rubinek, who went on to do Warehouse 13, played a documentary filmmaker. And the idea was that while he was trying to document something, this secret, government, they're hiding things from him, obviously, but a tragedy happens off-world while he's making the documentary. Anyway, Heroes was about 7 or 8 or 10 minutes too long for a single episode. And they didn't know how to cut it because they thought it was so good. They decided to turn it into a 2-parter. So they needed filler material, and they thought Robert Picardo. They just needed to pump the 12 minutes up to 42 minutes, and they decided to turn the second half of Heroes into their yearly clip show, where they would rerun clips from earlier episodes. But the way they decided to get around that was they had this character, Richard Woolsey, who had come in to determine whose head should roll, who was responsible for this tragedy. So I interview everyone with the intent of making someone a scapegoat for the tragedy. And I am a complete and utter dick. I am a soulless, humorless, emotionless, bureaucrat douchebag. That's the way it was written. I think I had 12 pages to shoot in one day because I was flying to England the next day. And I literally flew back from Vancouver to LAX, got on a plane, and flew to England. So they had to shoot all of this stuff, 12 pages. It was very technical. I don't know if you remember the first episode Woolsey was on. He keeps interviewing different people, and they did a camera trick where the camera never cuts, and every time it comes onto me and then back onto the chair, and people were hopping in and out of the chair, and without a break, and I couldn't react to them moving because it was supposed to look like a time lapse. So it was very technical. I got it done. The producer, Joe Malazzi, and Paul Muley, the producing team, said, let's go to dinner. They took me out to dinner, and they liked me. And they thought, oh, we'd like to have this guy back, but we introduced him as such a douchebag. They kind of painted themselves into a corner. So they started to have Mr. Woolsey back anyway, but every time he came back, he had a slight redeeming quality. Like the first time he's just an out-and-out douchebag. But then when he comes back, he's a douchebag who means well. He's a douchebag that believes that there should be, there should be oversight of secret government operations. Otherwise, Senator Kinsey, isn't it Kinsey? Played by Ronnie Cox, could get away with anything. Then they had me back, and I was a douchebag who meant well, who also knew he was a douchebag. I had a little self-reflection. And every time they brought Woolsey back, then when we did a crossover episode with Atlantis, where the SG-1 guys went off to a planet, and these bugs, it's overrun by these digital bugs. Do you remember that? Called the Swarm or something? I don't know. What's it called? You know when you all talk at once in an Irish accent, I have no idea what you're saying.
Nikki. Replicate.
Thank you. In that episode, when there is danger, you know who runs faster away from danger than anyone else? Richard Woolsey. So eventually, and I have no leadership skills. I'm brought in to critique other people's leadership, but have no skills of my own. So when they finally called me and said, we've decided to make Richard Woolsey the new commander of the Atlantis expedition, I said, you're kidding. I said, I have no leadership skills. Everybody hates me. I'm a complete coward, and I'm a douchebag. And they said, don't worry, that's our problem. And somehow they took this guy and turned it really into a little story of redemption. He kind of grows into a leader by the end of my one season in command, season 5. And I had ended up having a terrific time. It was so much looser than shooting Star Trek, where the producers are very, very careful. You can't change a syllable or a comma or anything without calling on the phone. And I understand that because Star Trek is set 200 years in the future, and they were very careful not to have anything seem contemporary. They didn't want the actors to ad-lib because they didn't want a contemporary expression or anything that would take the audience out of this imaginary future. But Stargate is set in a secret program in the present. So they were much looser about language. If I ad-libbed something and the director laughed, I could say it and they would shoot it. So there was a tremendous amount of freedom that was really a nice change after Star Trek.
Okay, we have time for one more question, and then we have a special moment at the end as well. So if we could go with this gentleman over here.
I was just thinking, because obviously you said you really want to do the play, you really love doing plays, obviously. With the massive influx of special effects in TV shows and films, has that created more of a disconnect now between, say, stage acting and film acting, anything like that? Like, would it be awkward now to switch between the two, or would you be able to do it with fair enough ease?
I honestly, I think they're kind of parallel disciplines, stage acting and film acting, and I think I've actually seen actors that are brilliant on film not be great on stage, and actors that are great on stage not be so great on film. But I think you can learn them. I mean, you can certainly learn from your mistakes working in either medium. But because I started in theater, even if I go 4 or 5 years without doing a play, I don't feel, I love working on, I don't feel, it doesn't feel odd to me to play scenes that are, 12 Angry Men, you never leave the stage. So each act is one long scene. I love that. I love the being in the reality for a long extended period of time rather than having it broken up the way it is in film and television. But I also love doing the other as well. So I don't find that one, working too much in one makes the other harder. It's just if you stay away too long and you lose that muscle memory of of really memorizing for the theater. That's the only scary part. As you get older, you start to worry about, whether you can really, and that's why actors like Sir Ian McKellen and Sir Patrick Stewart and all that, the fact that they, in their 70s, because they've worked continually in the theater, they've never gotten away long enough to fear going back to it. They've never left it, so they don't have to fear going back, and that's why they're so worthy of our admiration. I only did 2 plays in the last 14 months, so I need to do more theater, and each of them, are like a few weeks rehearsal, and then between a couple of weeks, if it's summer theater, up to an 8-week run. So I want to do more theater now, so that I don't grow to fear it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, folks, just a few things. Just one thing here. I said this yesterday during the Penn Ward panel. I'm going to say it now. Robert has very kindly signed this print that is on sale in the. This particular one isn't on sale. This is going to the charity auction, but the print is available to buy for €5 in the trade hall at the Light and Strike table. All proceeds go to the charity Belong To, which is LGBT rights and youth outreach program here in Ireland. But this particular one is being signed by Robert and Pennington Ward and other guests at the convention this weekend, and will be going in the charity auction. So if you want to check it out or pick up your own personal copy, it's €5 in the trade hall, but this one is in the charity auction. We want to thank Robert for actually signing it, and we're going to put it in. We also have...
I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. I was checking, my watch stopped, and I thought, God, I've been talking a long time, and my watch says 2:30. Thank God. You poor people, I thought you had to listen to me for another 30 minutes. You were so lucky. I got to fix this watch. All right, please go on.
We have representatives from the Irish Star Trek group, the USS Cuchulainn, who wish to present Robert with an honorary membership of the crew. Do we have a representative from the USS Cuchulainn on stage? Because it'd be more apt if a member of Starfleet, rather than the actual doctor, gives him this.
This is the moment that I wanted a handheld mic for. Otherwise, they would have had to talk in your face like this.
I'm going to step aside and let the gentleman do this and take some photographs. So there you go.
On either side of me? Yeah. All right, I will hold.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for having us here this afternoon, just to make a little bit of Irish Starfleet history in one respect. I'm very, very proud to have participation in this event today and to be in the presence of the legend that is the Dr. Robert Picardo. We have only been up and running over a year ourselves, and we are Starfleet International's only presence in Ireland at the moment, and we hope to open our doors across the whole of the country as we grow bigger and better. So the USS Cuchulainn, fan-based club in Ireland, Starfleet and sci-fi in general, and we would like to present Mr. Robert Picardo, the Doctor, with our very own honorary membership, the first ever honorary membership that we have for the club, and our own Doctor, Pete Mealy, has just provided the certificate there now. So can we have a big round of applause, please, for the Doctor? Also, so the certificate says the honorary membership presented to on behalf of the crew of the USS Cuchulainn in Ireland through the Dr. Robert Picardo in recognition of valuable contribution to humanity through Star Trek, and that is heartfully meant and genuinely felt. We also have one of our very own custom Irish Trek com badges we would like to present to you, which is enamelly bound as well, and feel free to
putting it on.
Put it on. The Doctor, thank you very much.
Just talk amongst yourselves.
Okay.
Coming through.
Yep, there you go. That's you. Ladies and gentlemen, the Doctor, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you later.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Thanks very much.
I am honored. I will say this, it is not the first Star Trek fan club I've gotten an honorary membership from, but it is the first Irish Star Trek fan club. And that makes it all the better. because I understand that a pint of Guinness comes with this. Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Thanks very much. You hold on to that, Robert. Cheers. No, there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Robert Picardo.
Thank you very much.
Fine. Robert will be out at his table for the rest of the afternoon signing autographs. Please feel free to go out and have a chat with him and get stuff signed, and he'll be out there for the rest of the day. Thank you very much, guys. Enjoy the rest of the convention.